Well, whatever.
Right.
Do it anyway.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
You're an idiot. Yeah. That's going to be the opening of our next episode.
Every sports fan has an opinion. Well, these are ours. Welcome to Brock and Pep's Unsportsmanlike Convo. And here are your hosts, Brock Fleming and Pep Cariotti.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is, you know what? It really is difficult to figure out what day it is during COVID. It's Tuesday, July 7th. Belated birthday shout out to my homie Troy Beaupre. It was his birthday yesterday. Got
T-Bone.
T-Bone is I don't know. Guys don't care. He's 44. Doing good, looking good. We had breakfast together. Anyway, he's always a week before my birthday, so I can never forget his. So happy birthday to Troy. Pierre, how are we doing?
Yeah. We are great. I've been spending the last 72 hours on my bike, on my loser cruiser, all over the city.
Let me stop you right there. On Sunday, were you on the Parkway in a dark basketball jersey, shorts, no helmet, glasses, suntan, flowing in the wind, going through traffic? And when you were doing so, was there a big white dude in a truck honking like a douche trying to wave you down and you didn't pay attention and rolled right by? Is that right? Pretty sure it is.
If I was going westbound, I had my earphones on too.
Oh yeah,
so.
Yeah. You were westbound, passing Island Park, and I was at the lights,
very possible.
Turning left to go to Kurt's, and I'm like, "There's Pep," and I was honking and honking. People were looking at me like I'm crazy, and you didn't even like flinch in my direction.
Sorry, pal.
No, that's all right. I had the kids say,
the zone.
Is that, zone. Was that actually Pierre? Because he didn't say anything to you, Dad. I'm like, no, it's true. It's.
Anyway. I'm not sure if either of you have been on the Parkway. They closed down the Parkway on, I think, Saturday and Sundays, and this is going to continue until September. It's a project. It's a pilot project. I know Sundays was a guarantee. They've been doing that for a couple of years, but adding this extra Saturday during the COVID time has been, for a guy like me who loves to bike. You know, you don't have to worry about traffic in both directions. You can bike in both directions on the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway. It's so relaxing, and I just love going on my bike. I started biking to work a couple of summers ago, and it's been great. So, yeah, I really should wear a helmet, though.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
It's like he's not wearing a helmet.
Whoa. I know I haven't been introduced yet, but you throwing down you seriously don't wear a helmet?
Look, I have no rational excuse. I couldn't even give you an argument that it could be.
You work in the hospital, dog.
Oh man,
God.
I'm embarrassed. This is embarrassing. I am embarrassed. I'm ashamed.
As well, you should be. But now introduce our guest.
Okay. Well, on that note, I am going to wear a helmet. Thanks to our next guest. I am so excited to have you on the show. I've been thinking about it for months. So has Brock. And, tying in with your last interview on CBC, I said, okay, now we really got to get this guy in because you were kind enough to plug our podcast during that 16 or 17-minute piece with there was another person on that show as well. Maybe you can mention her after I introduce you. But we have on the show one of Ottawa's best doctors. You work in palliative and intensive care, if I'm not mistaken, for the Montfort as well as the Ottawa Hospital. Dr. Kwadwo Kyeremanteng. Did I pronounce that correctly? Please say yes.
You're killing it. The first name's pronounced Kwadwo, but the DW is like a J. It's a horrible name, but it's proper though. And then Kyeremanteng. You killed the last name though, Kyeremanteng.
Hey, coming from somebody with the.
That's good, because if you'd asked me, there's not a chance I could figure it out. I can't even pronounce my own name.
Coming from somebody with a last name that starts with a K, that can be a little bit difficult to pronounce. I feel you. So proud to have you on. Glad and happy and excited because your podcast, the Solving Healthcare with Kwadwo Kyeremanteng, is not only is entertaining, but it's informative, and it's generally a very positive. You've touched upon so many different topics in the short amount of time that you've been doing this. I'm not sure. Brock, we're recording this, right? This will be on the YouTube?
Yeah, we're recording it. What do you think we're doing?
Brock?
Yes. Yes, we're recording it, Pierre.
Sorry. I am on the Quebec side, so my Wi-Fi is a little choppy sometimes. That's just the way it's going to be. But Dr. K, if you want to just sort of, I don't know, maybe lift yourself up like a half a foot so we can see your swag. That's
nice.
the Salt Lake Healthcare.
I got a Vanna White this thing. Or Vanna
Yeah. Black. Oh, yeah. Brock, cue the... That's so great. It's a nice looking shirt. Is that navy blue?
No, it's black.
But, beautiful. Beautiful.
But thank you, guys. Can I just say I'm really hyped to be on this show? Like, you guys have the dream show, man. We got to talk about sports, a little bit of politicking, if we will, and then your buddies, so then you can't insult each other too harshly. I'm jealous, but like, thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, anytime. And it's funny, Brock. Like, Brock and I are. It's called the Unsportsmanlike Convo. It's catchy, unsportsmanlike conduct, all that good stuff. But we rarely disagree. We're looking for things to disagree on, just so the show title makes sense. But anyway, it's a catchy name. You, Dr. K. Can I call you Dr. K?
You can call me whatever you want.
Dr. K.
Except for Lucille.
Oh, okay, sounds good. Your wife is Kat. Have I met Catherine?
You haven't met Kathy. She might have actually. You may have. She was working at the Ottawa Hospital for a year, and we were Good Life members. So you might have met her maybe once or twice, because she was going to use that gym at the General. But yeah, maybe once.
Okay. I'd love to meet her sometime. You have 3 boys.
Oh man.
Teddy, Zeke, and Marlo. I'm going to, just based on the photograph I saw on a clip on CBC, Teddy's 7.
Yeah.
Zeke is 2.
That's right.
And Marlo is 5.
Absolutely.
Boom.
Bam. Nailed
Beautiful. How have you managed to balance, especially since March when all of us went on lockdown, how have you been able to manage work and watching the kids, or like both of you? Has there been? Have you had outside help from the fam, or?
Oh my God! So, thanks for asking that question, because now I can give some credit where credit is due, my friend. Because number one, at work and at home, I got an amazing team. So, Kathy, she is the queen bee. She runs the show. We have hired help at home as well. At the beginning of the pandemic, my mother-in-law was actually staying with us. So we really had a lot of help, which was like a huge relief. Like then you could focus on work. You know what I mean? Like you're less anxious about all the stuff that you're being inundated with. So honestly, they are, without like Kathy being the quarterback of our house and our lives, I would not be here right now for sure. And then honestly, even at work, like even with our podcast, we have like almost 20 volunteers to help out with production of that. So that's been amazing. And then my research team, so kind, man. They've been just really carrying the weight. Laura Thompson, if you're listening, just shout out to your help that you've given for the past year. So really, I've been blessed with a great team. And without that, for sure, I wouldn't have time for all this stuff, buddy.
That's amazing. I took 20 volunteers. That's amazing.
Oh, it's funny. I was doing it all by myself, and then I reached out on an email or a Facebook message. I'm like, does anybody want to help out with stuff? And so then all these like med students were like, yeah, let's represent right now. And so like my show notes, that's like a group of 4. So I haven't posted something on social media in about 3 months.
Yeah,
you know
that's real.
Amazing.
All there.
Shout out to Julia Hajar. Thanks for taking the lead with that. You too. And yeah, man, like it's all about, I mean, I don't want to digress too much, but one of the keys in life, honestly, is just if you could delegate stuff and really like stay high level and realize how much needs to be under your skin and how much could be delegated off. It's such a huge like life hack. Like for sure, I wouldn't be where I am today if I wasn't liberal at, giving off some of those responsibilities, buddy.
Hey, shout out to all those med students. If any of you med students feel like you're being slighted and you don't really get the attention you deserve, or you're like, I wanted to be on that project, but there's just not enough for everybody, hit up the doc. He might know a show that can use some help. Anyway, all right.
Hey, now's the time to shout out. Any other shout outs you want to give now?
Yeah, floor is yours.
Yeah.
Shout out to fans in Red Deer, Alberta. I just made that up. I don't know if there's anybody listening in Red Deer, Alberta. Honestly, though, my mother-in-law, especially in the height of the pandemic, was massive. Marge, I just want to give you some love. And just like the staff at the TOH and at Montfort during the height of the pandemic, like, honestly, guys, like, it was scary. Like, when we started seeing some COVID cases and, you saw what was happening in New York and Washington State at the time, and like we didn't know what to expect. Like, and we heard all these like healthcare providers were getting sick, and so like that was scary. But I gotta tell you, I was never so proud to be part of a team, because everyone stepped up. They knew what was at stake, and there was no wavering. There was like a sick person comes in with COVID, when they wheel through the door, all the focus is there. There's no hey, it was just a lot of focus on what was in front of us. And then having that community rally behind you, I've never experienced something like that before, ever. And it was incredible. And so, sorry guys, that's for some reason my Google Home is ringing. I've never.
No, go. Yeah.
This could be important. I mean, he's a doctor. Hey, Pep, this is episode 60. You know that, right?
Is it number 60?
This is number 60. We got Dr. K on for episode 60. 60 of the UC is underway.
That's awesome. I keep getting memories on my Facebook page about, obviously every time we launch a podcast, we do a little write up. And I keep getting the memories coming up, and I've lost track. So, Dr. K, we're at episode 60, pal.
You 60?
It's 60, yeah.
Hey,
so
60.
You are, baby.
That's I know. 50's what, golden anniversary? What's the 60? Ruby. We'll just call it Ruby. Ruby.
Yeah.
Sure.
I like go or Crystal.
Crystal sounds great.
Yeah.
For a stripper.
Back to TOH, just to wrap that up before we go on to some other things. I echo your sentiments. I feel that the hospital, its staff, our community as a whole, I think has done a really good job. But I'm so proud to work at the Ottawa Hospital. Am I a health professional? No, but I've been in the building for 16 years and I've met some amazing people. In fact, you were one of the first people I ever met in the hospital when I first started working. I think I was at the Civic initially, doing some personal training, and I remember meeting you, and I thought to myself, this guy has it. He's got just a humble, nice guy, and I'm not surprised you are where you are right now, and doing what you do and helping people live, and you've saved countless amount of lives, I'm sure. Are you on the research side at all too? Yeah,
big time. But before answering that, Pep, I just want to say, I remember meeting you and immediately had like this bond. Like, I'm like, we understand each other, like the value of being fit. And like, I could see that you had a bit of a comical side too. There was always that kind of sly little grin with stuff that was going on. I just want to echo that. And the other thing that I want to say is when it comes to, the value, like we're all at the Ottawa Hospital, wherever, we're a big team. One of the biggest contributors to being able to combat COVID-19 is to being fit. I don't care what anybody says. When we saw those patients come through, diabetes, hypertension, obesity, right? Aside from being old and vulnerable. So stuff that you're doing to try and promote fitness, not only from a mental perspective, but also from getting your best chances of combating COVID-19, that is real, okay? And I'm saying this as from stuff that we've seen, that stuff in the research, this is the opportunity, people. You phone up Pep and say like, yo, you know what, you want to go for a run, you want to go for a bike on the
Parkway.
Sir John A. McDonald Parkway.
Yeah, exactly. But wearing a helmet.
Bring me a helmet.
But wearing a helmet. Otherwise, you see me in the ICU. But yeah, man, I just got to give you that plug, man, for real. And then getting back to the research, like our whole research program is on how we could save healthcare dollars. That's like been the main objective. And I've been focusing on ICU and palliative care because that's my world. But like people have no idea how much it costs to be in the intensive care unit. Like if I were to say, how much do you think, like say your grandma or elderly person gets transferred to the ICU from an old age home, how much do you think that costs per day? If you were to guess the system. Just a lot, just per day, just one.
$500.
$1,000.
$3,000.
Wow.
Just from walking in the door, man.
That is...
And so 1% of your gross domestic product goes to taking care of like critically ill patients. And our whole point of view is there's a lot of people that come in that don't benefit from that, right? Like because they're older, because they have multiple comorbidities, and so they go through these ICU admissions and they don't have a positive result. And we spend millions on these cases, and so that was one of the areas that we do research on. I won't bore you with that stuff, but the short version is our goal is just how can we save money and improve quality of care.
There,
that's big.
Therein lies the challenge. Yeah, no kidding. Wow. And just keep doing what you do because we're all so proud of you. I'm super proud. Every time I see you on CTV or CBC, I'm like, whoever I'm sitting beside, which is usually nobody, but or I'll just talk to myself. But I just say I know that guy, and I'm proud to know that guy. And you're very informative, but you have a positive spin on things. And I think you've calmed the masses probably better than most people have. And a shout out to Dr. Vera Etches too. I think she's just done a phenomenal job. You know, the criticism coming from all angles, and she's handled it like a real pro.
Yeah, she's been very informative and has kept it real. In fact, we've been trying to get her on the show. So Vera, you checking this out? If you're listening now, jump on that Sullivan Healthcare train. We'd love to hear from you.
I want to. Before we get into some sports, I'm excited to, and Brock is also excited to ask you some questions about sports and COVID, and leagues are planning to start up. But I did want to mention one thing. As I was doing a little bit of research on you the last couple of days, I came across an article published by CBC on June 9th, where you discuss some of your experiences with racism and how you understand the inevitability of your boys having to, unfortunately, probably experience that same racism when they get a little older. You talk about encounters with police and a few moments during your academic career where you'd have to deal with the occasional slight and how those moments would stack up and just have an effect on you. Before we go into the fun stuff, I'm just curious, what advice would you have or what would you give to a visible minority who's listening right now, who aspires to be a doctor, nurse, teacher, a professional athlete, maybe an entrepreneur, government employee, retail clerk, coffee shop owner, whatever? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. But I would say this, my dad, when I was about 14, sat me down when I came home with what I thought was great marks, like A- average from, B plus. I thought I was making some headway, and he was frustrated. And he was telling me, he's like, mediocre's not going to cut it. Okay. Like look at the color of your skin. Okay. You have to put in that extra mile. You're going to have to prove yourself. You're going to have to make sure they can't say no to you when you appear at their doorstep. Because if you have the exact same application as a John Smith and your name is Kwadwo Kyeremanteng, who do you think they're going to take? And it was, it was a lesson you kind of knew in the back of your mind, but I'll never forget like him throwing down like that and the emphasis in the hurt in his voice. And, you know, in terms of my advice is the same thing. I hate to say it, it's 2020. And I still, as a guy that's got the credentials and, you know, the education, I've still, in my opinion, had to go uphill. I've had to do more steps than my colleagues and anticipate that. And the other thing I would say, though, is at the end of the day, when you come up on top, you're going to be a warrior. You're going to be strong. You're going to, they won't be able to touch you because of that amount of grit and resilience that you've created for yourself. And so I would say, you know, be prepared, want it, hustle. It's worth it in the end. But, and the other thing I would say that's worked for me, and everyone's different. I'm not a psychologist, but use that angle. When you see that George Floyd bullshit, when you see that any oppression, like use that as fuel. Because I'll tell you, I use that as fuel. You tell me, okay, you're not going to get into med school, or I don't think you're good enough to get into med school. I'm like, I'll show you this shit. Okay. You tell me this research I'm doing is not real research because we're looking at cost. I'm like, I'll prove this shit to you. All right. You're going to say this this podcast idea is ridiculous. Who's going to listen to? I'm like, okay. All right. Let's see what happens. Okay. Let's see what goodness comes out of this. And just use that as fuel. You know, and like I said, I'm not a psychologist, but it certainly has worked for me to say, like, at the end of the day, to look back and I said, I told you so, you know. But I'm not sure I answered that question directly, but certainly that's the advice I'll be telling my kids when they come to, you know, come of age.
I think that's great advice. I mean, and, you know, it's along the lines, we talk sports here all the time, but that mentality of using it for fuel and proving people and naysayers wrong, that's, you know, something that's very home to athletes in general as well. That's that, you know, you're always constantly trying to prove, and, you know, in the athletic and the sports world, that is a lot of visible minorities. And so they have that mindset as well, and you know, use that to the best of their advantage. But I think that's great advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, again, we're not a political podcast. We rarely go there. We don't, you know, but I feel in Canada, racism certainly does exist. We may be a little bit better supported, though, is how I feel about Canada versus our neighbors to the south, for example, where the leaders seem to be more divisive than they are bringing people together. So that's where the two countries right now, as we stand, that's where we differ is our leadership seems to be a bit more like, you know, let's rally everybody together and get through this. Whereas, you know, like I said, in our neighbors to the south, this seems to be a little bit more divisive from the top down. But anyway, what a great answer. And that's exactly what I wouldn't have expected anything less. That's just exactly what I wanted to hear. But we want to know a little bit more about your sports side. And we have broadcast some questions. We have some clips for you. But I have a question for you, pal.
Yes.
What is your favorite sport to play?
To play?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure it's hockey. Like, I've played since I was 4 years old. I've grew up in Edmonton, so like I grew up during, like, we're all the same age, roughly the same age. I grew up during the cup runs of the 80s, and so this was everything. So I mean, like, even if you take a step back, like, what a game, right? Like, you got the athletic abilities, you got the speed, you got the physicality. Like, you seen those cup runs where you need the big brawn LA Kings of the world to grind the team down. You got the finesse teams, like, you know, the Penguins. Like, it's so beautiful.
Oh, I agree. But Brock and I have had this discussion as well about hockey being the one sport that hasn't adjusted to the size of the athlete. Oh,
yeah. There he is.
There he is.
I thought we were going to have the discussion again, Pep, without him.
Oh yeah. Did you notice that, Dr. K, that your screen froze?
Yeah, but I was talking so much that I wasn't even like I was looking up in the air, then I looked down. I'm like, oh, I wonder if they caught any of that.
Well,
But
let me rephrase then. You mentioned hockey, and you make a great point actually about it being a beautiful game. But the game has certainly changed over the last 20 years. I find hockey personally, and I think Brock, you agree with me. Actually, Brock, you mentioned this a little while ago, that the athlete in hockey, the sport has become almost too fast, and the players are too big and too strong for the ice surface. And if you look at basketball, the net hasn't changed. The football, the football field really hasn't changed. But hockey is the only sport where you're wearing equipment that make you faster, stronger, and bigger. So the nets now are like, you got to be a real sniper to put the puck in the net, as far as I'm concerned. Has the game, in your eyes, changed? But would you agree with us that perhaps the ice surface and some of the equipment hasn't been kept up to speed with the player?
Well, Dr. K is the perfect guy to ask this to, because if you grew up in Edmonton and you were a big fan of all those 80s, 90s cup runs, which was Wayne and those Oilers, and we had the conversation of Wayne and being, where he is in terms of the scoring and so much far advanced, but then we talk about like the player like a Sidney Crosby versus a Wayne Gretzky and the way the game's changed. So you've seen it all, and you were there, and you obviously were very impacted as a child watching those runs. Now when you look back and you see a Wayne Gretzky's goals and stuff like that, what's your feeling on that? You're kind of like, whoa, it's changed a lot.
Different game.
I think we all see the same thing, like much slower. Look at the goalie pads. Like look at even look at Patrick Waugh early in his career. Like there's so much net to shoot at. You know what I mean? Like I would get 23 goals in that era, I think. You know what I mean? You put me on the third line. Yeah, it's definitely, not to be all on the same page, but I do agree it's almost too fast. And I actually think the league has gotten smaller, significantly smaller. Like you couldn't get away with a 5'11" defenseman 15 years ago or whatever. Like you got the Marners of the world. Like there's so much, the players are so much smaller because they are trying to create a faster game. And it's, in some ways, it's definitely more dangerous because you have less time to make decisions. Like everything's on a dime. Like, you know what I mean? And so but in some ways, I see those games on that bigger ice surface, and it's just like, holy cow! Like they got 8 minutes to make a decision, and like the game seems to be less. Like there seems to be less scoring as well. So I'm not sure exactly what the answer is, but I do agree that it seems that the game is almost too fast to a fault. But yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from.
I personally think that it's a simple fix. International ice seems to be a really entertaining form of hockey, and when the Olympics is some of the best hockey around. So international ice for me would fix one issue, a little bit more room to pass, room to skate, room to show off your skills, and they've just got to do something with the goalies and the nets. Yeah. I mean the guys. So you talk about the players getting smaller, but the goalies have gotten bigger. There's like Freddie Anderson is 6'8", 6'7".
Really?
Yeah, he's huge, and that's without skates. He's listed as 6'8" or 6'7". I mean, imagine him on skates. All he has to do is go down on his knees, and he's covering the whole net. So, and these guys are so positionally sound. They're so well coached. It's not like the days like Gilles Melush and some of those guys, Steve Penny. I mean, like I can't skate, and I could have scored on Steve Penny. So I know what you're saying. But is hockey also your favorite sport to watch? I asked what to play, but
to watch is probably NFL football, and the reason like. NHL hockey, when you got your team, is for me is easy to watch. But if you ask me to watch New Jersey versus Islanders like mid-season, I'm not watching that game. Whereas NFL season, I almost don't care who's playing because I'm about to get excited. There's so much beautifulness to the NFL football. Not only the athleticism, not only the execution when you need it. Actually, I think one of my favorite parts of the game is the fact that coaching could directly impact the game at another level. Like your play call in the moment is everything. You know what I mean? Like I'll give you two examples. One would be the fourth down Philly against New England, Philly special. I think they call it the Philly special, where
Trey Burton.
Foles caught the touchdown pass. That was fourth down in the Super Bowl, man. Fourth down in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Like, that is ballsy. And then the other one that people, I don't know if this is too nuanced, but the Super Bowl against Seattle, where they chose, they didn't go to Lynch on the 1 yard line when
Malcolm Butler.
Yeah, exactly.
I made him a lot of money.
Absolutely. Ugh. But the thing that was the most genius part of that people don't talk about enough, Belichick didn't call a timeout. He had room, like he should have called a timeout on paper, right? Because he wanted to leave some room for some time for his team to get possession of the ball. But if you watch one of the documentaries, he was saying like there was something not right about what was going on with Seattle. They looked disorganized. They were coming in and out of the huddle, and he didn't want to let them off the hook. And his whole coaching staff's going like, "You don't want to call timeout? You don't want to call timeout? You don't want to call timeout? You don't want to call timeout?" Brilliant. Like to rely on your intuition like that, and like Butler, apparently they practiced that. They knew that play call, by the way. Yeah. But they practiced that a dozen times at
and he got burnt at practice about three or four times because he would go around the receiver and try and get in front instead of being aggressive enough and cutting it off. And so he was coached up during that practice of like, this is why you're getting your ass whooped. And then in the Super Bowl just happened to time it up and he didn't even hesitate. So they prepared for it. He knew it was coming. It was amazing.
Wow. If we're on the topic of Super Bowl plays that were practiced.
So we should take a break maybe right now? What Steeler is this?
Let's just rewind to the 2008 Super Bowl when James Harrison picked off Kurt Warner and took it to the house. Well, they practiced all week. If a defense, somebody on defense gets an interception, everybody hightail it forward and look for someone to hit. And now there were a couple of blocks during that run back that are illegal now in today's game. Brock, you could probably specify what kind of block I'm talking about.
It's a crackback block.
Where you hit to the shoulder or something like that?
No, it's now the blocks, if it's angle of blocks. So if you're blocking back towards your end zone is illegal. So anyway, that's another show.
Those blocks.
Yeah.
It's almost like a blind side.
Yeah. So and the problem with that one, again, not getting into it, but if you're within the tackle box, like a tackle gets beat and he turns, maybe he rolls the other way and comes back in just to make a block on a quarterback, but now he's hitting the guy towards his own end zone. I've seen calls, and the Bills got a call like that. Curtis will remember against the Texans in the playoff game. But anything that involves you going back towards your own end zone to make that block is a no-no now.
Right. Well, they practiced that play all week, and lo and behold, Harrison got the ball, and it was just a convoy of humanity going up the field. So it was a great play, memorable play. But
he was down at the 1, I think, right? That one. But they gave him the touchdown. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
he was not down at the 1. What?
No.
Nah.
Oh, okay.
No.
No. Come on.
Speaking of offside, man, no, that was.
Dr. K, who's your favorite athlete?
Whoa. Oh, man. Like, I mean, my go-to in the past, like if I go, there was, MJ was always growing up was, I was big on MJ. Right now it's McDavid. Soccer-wise, back in the day was Zidane. I was never a huge on soccer, but like, I just love Zizou's game.
He's the headbutt guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll forgive him for that. I think if you had to give me one, it would have to been MJ for real.
Okay.
Just like so much grace and like clutch. and I love the competitiveness. Like I got three of my kids. One of them is like killer instincts, and one of the things I always say is you can't teach competitiveness. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to amp it up.
Yep.
Oh, no doubt.
So yeah, it's actually kind of nice to see.
I always said, I thought, MJ, you can actually create a handbook on how to play the game of basketball. Everything from, catching the ball, passing to 3-point footwork, 3-point threat, triple threat, I should call it. Sorry. Everything, all the fundamentals that are involved in basketball, MJ did perfectly.
Yeah,
like
and the
to
author
a
of
T.
that book was Dean Smith and Phil Jackson.
No, you know what? Phil wasn't an X's and O's guy.
Dean
Michael's
Smith, and
first
who's the other
7 years
guy?
in the league. Well, he only played 2 years for Dean Smith.
Yeah,
Michael
but Dean
Jordan
Smith
was
and the assistant coach was the other UNC Hall of Famer coach. He came right after Dean Smith.
in Carolina.
Yeah. Whatever.
Roy Williams?
Yeah.
Well, it's great coaching
Anyway,
for
I'm just
sure,
saying.
but you still have to have the skill. Like, I mean, there's guys in the NBA who've had the best coaching in the world who still can't catch and not travel with or do a crossover properly without traveling. So, he put to practice what he was taught. So anyway, so you're going to go with Jordan? Is that who your favorite athlete is of all time?
Of all time, I'm gonna have to go MJ.
Okay, Brock's a LeBron fan, and that's a hard argument, right? LeBron and MJ. Those are really the two greatest players right now. If you were to narrow it down, although some would argue Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, longevity, all-time leading scorer in history, played through a very difficult period of time. A lot of racial tension in the prime of his career. So I don't know.
Right.
And so, who are you going with then, Pat?
My favorite athlete of all time. I'm not the best, but my favorite is Magic Johnson.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. Just really quickly, who are your favorite teams in the? And I'm going to specify leagues because we could go on like soccer and tennis and all. But in the NFL, who's your favorite team?
Yeah, I'm a fair weather fan, but if you made me have two, I'd say the Saints and the Steelers.
Yes, I did not know that, Brock. I didn't set him up for that.
Yeah, right.
Woo! I'm not sure if
Well, if he's a fair weather fan, he's not a Steeler fan right now.
No, he is now. He's been anointed.
No,
Okay.
Yeah. I hear you though.
NBA?
NBA, Raptors. Growing up though was like Bulls.
Okay.
Yeah.
NHL, obviously.
Oiler Nation, baby.
Yeah. Best unis in the league.
Home. Cup is coming home.
How do you feel about them changing to orange?
Oh, I'll bite.
Yeah?
I'll bite. I like it. And honestly, they could be wearing like fluorescent pink, turquoise, whatever. As long as they start, my boy Leon and my boy McDiddy keep doing their thing. You can do whatever they want. You know what I mean? They could wear up the cutoff jersey,
Wow. If they're wearing pink, they're McDiddy and Leo or Leon, whatever. That's what they call them.
Okay, and baseball? Are you a baseball fan at all?
So it was the Jays growing up, but like I am not a Monster fan anymore. Like it's been even I would say when they had that Donaldson and Batista run, like I was already kind of out of fanship, and definitely I was watching those games, but I'm finding baseball. Like I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it's a struggle now, and maybe my attention just being 2020 and us having everything is fast paced, but the baseball I find it hard to get through. Like I've seen a couple live games, and as I went to see a game in San Francisco, I saw the Brewers play, and in this stage of my life, not a big fan.
But that's fair. I think I find baseball to be. I use it for that, to relax. I don't go to a baseball game because I'm ready to get all amped up like a Red Blacks game. I actually go there to just enjoy the sights and sounds, and if it's a grass field, the smells, and it's just it's a relaxing. I love the game personally. I do have one critique of it is that there's too many rolling in of pitchers. Like your starting pitcher could pitch for 4 innings now, and then it's call to the bullpen, and it takes time. They come in, they warm up, it's a 5-minute delay for every pitcher coming in and out. And that just prolongs the game. It adds another half an hour, 45 minutes to an already pretty long game. So that's my critique.
I also I grew up playing. So I actually, to be honest with you, I like the game. It's just, and I actually, similar to football, I love the strategy, like the decision to put that lefty in or it's a full count and you throw that off speed pitch anyway. But it's still a bit too slow for me right now. Like when we got all our other sports.
Fair enough. I think a lot of people would probably agree with you there and have the same feeling about baseball. But we wanted to talk. I mean, we brought you on here because we love you, but we also wanted to talk COVID and sports. That was really what we had in mind. And I know Brock has a couple of sound bites that we want to play, but before we do that, I just want to ask you the simplest of simple questions when it comes to COVID. Like, what is it? We know it's a virus, but how does it affect a person?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to get some clarity on this, right? Like it's it's a coronavirus, so it's the same family as the common cold, and what seems to be unique about this is we think anyway, it seems to be more contagious, where this is why we're seeing it go widespread fairly rapidly in certain contexts. It gets absorbed through your mucous membrane, so your eyes, your nose, your mouth. This is why people talk about face shields. They talk about masks to protect themselves or to reduce the risk of getting it. And the other tricky thing about this is that we seem to think that at some level you could have no symptoms and still transmit it to others. I think the latest consensus is it's less likely if you're asymptomatic, but sometimes you might be asymptomatic and then develop it later. We call that pre-symptomatic. And then certainly we think you would still be contagious at that point. And then the thing is, you're getting a variety of symptoms based on who you are. Like initially we saw some like common cold or flu symptoms, so runny nose, sore throat, cough, shortness of breath. And even initially, though, we even saw some cases where they had diarrhea, so it was affecting the GI tract, which was odd, to be honest with you. And the other element that makes this unique is that it just had some properties that we didn't see in other viruses. Like we saw more clotting diseases, so like strokes, clots in the lungs, clots in the legs, kidney failure, like stuff that we weren't really seeing with, like, say, the flu. People that were seriously sick were becoming more confused than typically we would see. So there was some element there was some uniqueness to this, but I think the great thing is that been one of the biggest gifts is that in Canada we were ready. We got to unfortunately see what happened to the other parts of the world, and we prepped. We had our excellent public health. We give props to Vera and crew like that, and so that was a big factor on why we're, becoming more functional as a society.
Well, listen, I got a soundbite here from, you said he's a reliever, right, Pep? Sean Doolittle?
Yeah.
From the Washington Nationals. I don't know if you heard this or not, but he was addressing the media and his concerns about the return of sports in general.
Where we're at in our response to this as a country, Like, we're trying to bring baseball back during a pandemic that's killed 130,000 people. We're way worse off as a country than where we were in March when we shut this thing down. And like, look at where other developed countries are in their response to this. We haven't done any of the things that other countries have done to bring sports back. Sports are like the reward of a functioning society, a functional society. And we're just like trying to just bring it back, even though we've taken none of the steps to have to flatten the curve, or whatever you want to say.
So that one, it goes on a little bit longer, but for me, it really stood out as, you know, the view of sports. Like, we want sports back. That's true. We want sports back, but he's right, where I think the sport should be treated as a reward. If we take the right steps and we're a functional society, as he calls it, and do the right things, then we can earn sports back. And in Canada, we're doing some of the stuff, but obviously the states are not on board. And when it comes to a sports environment, the states are the epicenter. So for you being an expert, like, what are your thoughts on, I mean, his comments, but also sports of possibility coming back during this present time?
Yeah, it's all great points. And I mean, I agree with what he's saying. First, I'll say that I'm, just in case people get like really particular, I'm not truly an expert. I'm not an infectious disease. I'm just a ICU doc that has dealt with COVID cases and is doing my best to keep up with the evidence. But a couple of thoughts that I have is, you know, we got to be clear that we're not, like, Canada is not the same as the States, right? Like, we are, like, the amount of hospitalizations and everything that's happening locally compared to down south is completely different. So I think, you know, the conversation about sports in Canada compared to the States is a different one, in my opinion. What he's saying about it being a reward, like, I mean, absolutely. Like, it's a bit crazy. Like, I think the mistake they really made was they opened things up. Not only did they open things up at an extreme, like to go back to normal life, but they opened things up in a lot of places where there was still an upswing in terms of cases. Right. Whereas, you know, a lot of the places in Europe and everything, in Australia, there was already that downswing in cases, which is a different story in my opinion. So I think they've approached things in a way that I don't think anybody would truly recommend from a medical point. Having said that, I think with all COVID-related matters, it's up to, you know, the government, their local authorities, their organization on what their risk tolerance is. Do you know what I mean? So, like, you know, if they're willing to accept the fact that they're going to go back, baseball players are probably going to get infected or whatever, knowing the fact also, like, and this is just, take this with a grain of salt, most baseball players that get infected will do fine, right? Like, ultimately, like, the ones that really get sick, there are risk factors for that. But, you know, that's still a risk of passing it on to their family or to people around, and to make the virus get worse. So it's all about what's an acceptable risk for them. And so I could speak for myself to say, like, you know, doing it in the height of the pandemic with the cases are going up seems ludicrous. But, you know, there's a society that wants to get back to their economy getting back to normal as soon as we can. Because the other part of this, like, one of the things that we've been talking a lot on the show is the secondary consequences of us locking down. Like, right. They're dramatic. Like, people don't have I don't think people fully appreciate how devastating this could be. Like, we did a show on child abuse. Like, the kids helpline wanted to double their staff, and knowing that kids were at home with their abuser with no out, coaches that would normally spot it, teachers that would normally spot it, have no way of, the kids have no out. You know, kids being at home, there's already increasing their mental, like, cases of mental illness and all these kind of things. So, like, there's consequences to being locked down. And so I think as a society, you weigh what those risks are and you decide what's the best way moving forward. Certainly the U.S. extreme is nothing I would agree with, but in my opinion, it's up to them. Like, if they want to do that, especially if our borders are closed, you guys do your thing. Right. and we're okay over here.
That's all, and yeah, we've heard people, and they've talked about the solution possibly having more of an effect than the actual disease when you talk about secondary effects, and that being a concern. But bringing it back again, I can go into. I have a lot of questions, and I would pose on a different platform than the sports podcast that we're doing. But you know, I know with sports coming back, or the talk of sports coming back, and you say it's kind of on their decision. Which sport do you think would be the most versus the least affected by COVID? And by that, I mean like, let's say the spread of the disease within a sport environment, the actual play on the field or ice surface or wherever.
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I would, and once again, this is just my opinion based on the stuff that I've seen. I would think, like, if we're talking team sports, baseball's got to be up there with one of the safer ones because it's outdoors. You don't have to be in close proximity to people as much. I really do think there's something to the outdoor part of COVID, by the way. Like, we saw all those Black Lives Matters rallies. Like, I don't think there's been any clear focus of outbreak related to any of those rallies that were going out. So I truly believe that really reduces transmission risk. So sports that are outside, I would say, the thing with it's hard to really know because like COVID is on paper, it's supposed to be close proximity for sustained periods of time. So, you know, even in hockey, if you're, you know, shoulder to shoulder with somebody and it's just for a couple seconds, I don't know if that's a real risk. And maybe it is, but I actually don't know. I would think maybe basketball, there's a little bit more intimacy there. It's indoors. I would think that would maybe be a little bit more at risk as well. Certainly at a more individual level, UFC, I would think for sure, like you got some guy that's grappling with you for, you know, like a half a round even, you think, you know, that would add up. But certainly to answer your question directly, I think baseball would be probably one of the safer ones off the top of my head. Football, once again, it's outside. It's not sustained contact unless you're a lineman. And I would think linemen would be more at risk of getting sick, to be honest with you, just because of the, you know, the level of obesity and stuff. But baseball, I think, off the top of my head, would be the safest.
All right. Awesome.
What
awesome
about
that linemen are more susceptible and being overweight is more susceptible because that's not great. I got to go to the treadmill real quick. But anyway, go ahead, Pep.
But can I say this? Can I say, Pep, just before answering this? But one of the things that I think is a crime, and I've alluded to this too about you doing some fitness, there are tons of ways that we, like if public health said, like collectively, you know what, let's all get healthier. Whether that's your fitness, whether that's through intermittent fasting, whether that's through low carb, like there's so many approaches to this that are studied and could you know, suit whoever it might be. Like if you're more of a fitness guy, you want to get out and maybe that's more your thing. If you want to be more of a alter your diet, maybe that's another thing. But if I were public health, I'd be throwing down on the fitness side or on the health side right now. While there's a lull, let's do this. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah,
that's a great point.
I mean, you know, we're all ready to rumble on the fitness side of things. You know, I don't have a ton of details yet as to how we're going to reopen, but we're all ready to go. And I know the Ottawa Hospital and the Good Life in the hospital, we're going to be delayed significantly in relation to the other big clubs that are going to be opening within the city. There's some logistics behind that, but we're ready to rumble. I'm ready to rumble. I'm ready to get people back into the gym, and you know, fitness certainly at our club has been beneficial, not just physically but mentally as well, with the stress relief that you guys have to deal with all the stress. You come down for 45 minutes. It's a de-stressor, whether you're on a treadmill or doing a circuit or whatever the case is, and you got your tunes on. It's 45 minutes of just de-stressed, and a lot of people go right back to work and function the rest of their day, and it's a major benefit in that way. So I'm ready to go. I'm all for it. Public health, if you're listening, you know, if there's a way that we can get this going and get people moving, and I certainly am willing to help. But it's a great start. I want to ask you about what about tennis? The Grand Slams have been postponed. What about tennis? I mean, really, the only risk is just holding the ball. I mean, and they're not that close to each other.
Tennis has got to be one of the, like, if you're talking individual sport, that's got to be one of the safest around. I can't see that being high risk at all. And I'm putting my neck out there a bit there, but like, for the points that you made, it's outside. You don't really have to be close to someone. They don't have to give props at the end of the match if they don't want to. They don't have to shake hands with the official. Just give a brother nod. But like, honestly, it's a great point. You don't have anybody in the stands, right? You could go match like standless matches. It's a great point.
Well, actually, it's a great segue. Do you see stadiums with fans in 2020?
Probably not in 2020. Honestly, no. The reason why is that there'll be so much fear of a second wave that they just don't want to be the source of it. It's kind of like even like you think about locally how we're approaching like our kids. I'm eager for our kids to get back to school normal. Like one for their mental health, two because to make sure we're functional in society and stuff like we can't have people working from home all the time. Like not everybody can function that way. But I think people are hedging their bets right now because of the fear of a second wave. And so I think in 2020, I don't think so. And I think my guess, and this is not based on anything, would be that whatever integration is going to be a slow one. So the outdoor stadiums first, and it's not going to be full. Then as things settle, if there's a vaccine or if cases seem to be well controlled, then maybe there'll be a bit of indoor activity. But honestly, the indoor stuff is probably one of the worst ways of spreading the virus. Like if you have a bunch of people in close proximity shouting, yelling, because it's droplet transmission. It's like, like the little pieces of spit almost is the way I would think about it. That's my
speaking moistly, yeah.
But yeah, I think we're a ways from that.
This might be a good opportunity for the NHL to remove those, 3 or 4 rows they need to remove to then make it the Olympic-size ice. If there's nobody in there anyway, change that. Then we get the big ice surface that we want.
You guys really are sold on the large ice, eh?
Yeah, I had, I went to a couple of Montreal Canadian games this past year, just before the COVID actually, one in February, one in November, and the game is just like this is live. Usually live, it's 10 times more entertaining, and we just found it a little slow, and it's supposed to be fast, yet it's slower because the guys are coming right by the blue line and just bitch slapping it right to the back of the net, and then they're chasing, and then the other team goes the other way and does the exact same thing, and that goes on for 60 minutes, and you hope that there's multiple deflection goal, unless you're Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby. The goals are like you got to screen the goalie. Defensemen can't even touch the guy in front of the net now, otherwise it's a penalty. So it's just they made rules to make it faster and more entertaining offensively, yet it's backfiring a little bit because the players are so quick and so fast.
Isn't scoring up though?
Marginally, it is marginally, but it is. They actually implemented a rule. Was it last season or the season before? The goalie pads have to be a certain height and certain width now. I think that's important.
I think they're changing that maybe again based on relative to the goalie's size, because before it was just the pads, but a guy who's 5'11" can wear the same size pad that the guy who's 6'8", and it's like, well, that's too big for him. Like I think they're working on something that's relative to the actual goalie's size. But
I'm all for that.
Yeah,
I'm all for that. You talk about the close proximity, Dr. K. And I think basketball is in real trouble. And I'm concerned about basketball. A lot of their stars are saying I'm out. Mm-hmm. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant probably could have made late season pushes to play, and they've both said, "See you, Nets. I'm gone." Ryan Dinwiddie and their third best player is on the fence. We're seeing in baseball, Mike Trout perennial MVP every year, is all but said I'm not playing. David Price says I'm out. These are big name guys. These aren't just your run of the mill guys. These are the stars of the league saying I'm worried about my family. And if we don't have to look much further than Karl Anthony Towns, the Minnesota Timberwolves starting center, his COVID.
His what?
It wasn't about necessarily them getting sick. Like his mother passed away from COVID early. It was early in March, I think. So we don't have to look much further than just he's one of the stars of the league. So Brock and I have been back and forth about, we want sports. We're bored. We're stuck at home. What a perfect time to watch sports. But on the other hand, is it really even worth it now to have a modified playoff in basketball, modified hockey playoff? I don't even know how they're going to structure it. It's really turned the draft upside down apparently too in hockey. Is baseball even worth having a 60-game season from a season that's normally 162 games? The odds of them having another stoppage are pretty high. There's going to be another outbreak somewhere in one of these bubble cities, and they're going to have to stop play again. So why bother? Do you think it's even worth it at this point?
Yeah, it's such a tough one, man. I've been really back and forth with this too, because I think once again, differing spots are having different risks. Like different sports have differing risks. Is there measures you could do to reduce that risk? And maybe there is, or maybe we tell ourselves it's not worth it. I don't know.
Well, these bubble cities seem to be the main measure that they're taking. But bringing 8 teams into I think basketball is using Orlando, Florida. You're bringing 8 teams there. They're going to be confined to a certain space, I would imagine. If I'm not mistaken, they even all have their own practice court that is, far enough away from another team's practice court.
Yeah. I guess the reason I'm struggling with it is because we really have to learn how to live with this thing. Like it's not going away. And if we ask ourselves, what was the initial purpose of all of the things that we do? Flatten the curve. Why we flatten the curve? So we make sure our hospitals and healthcare systems aren't overrun. All right. So, luckily in Canada, we weren't in a spot where things weren't getting overrun. There's places in the States now that are either close to or this is happening now. And so if we have that mindset of, hey, we got to live with this thing, we got to be human beings again, then, to me, to be honest with you, if I were king of the world for a day or whatever, if we're going to go ahead with sports, just be malleable. Like if it's clearly that this is not going to work, like we get these outbreaks and, we can start to get some hospitalizations, you got to shut it down. I don't think it's unreasonable to try, because we got to learn how to live with this thing, to be honest with you, because it's not like the vaccine would be, the experts are saying a year and a half away or a year away at earliest. I really think we have to at some point learn to live with this virus.
All right. And on that actual note, with learning to live with this virus, is there, I guess, I don't want to say when this is all done because it's not, but let's say a vaccine comes out and this particular virus is handled. Do you think there is, will it ever go back to the way it was beforehand? Or are we just kind of in a new world where it's look, these type of viruses, these type of spreads may become more prevalent, and we just kind of need to address and sort of tailor our living now to this modified version where it is maybe easier to flatten the curve should the next wave or the next virus kind of show its face?
That's such a good question, Brock, because it's part of what I'm nervous about, because there'll be another bug for sure. Right. This, I don't know if that's 3, 4, 10 years away, but the people talk about an avian flu coming in the future. So I think this will happen. The question is, how is this really affecting us long term? I don't know, but I am anxious. Am I gonna, next time I see you guys, say it was a year from now, can I give you like, can I give you a hug? Kind of, especially like a bear hug. You know what I mean? And I just like I hope we could still stay humans and stay connected. And I think this is part of my problem with the media too. It's been so fear provoking. Like everything is fear them, and I just with that mindset, with the people getting so divisive, like go on your social media and get people talking about masks right now. I think people are stabbing their phones based on the responses. And so like I am ultimately anxious that we might lose some of that human connection. But to answer your question directly, I think some of the stuff that we're doing is going to stay. Like I think whether it's good or bad, like aggressive hand washing, social distancing to a certain when you can, I think that's going to be kind of a new norm. But we'll see. It's a tough call.
Yeah. You got some speed option stuff coming in, don't you?
I do. I'm just looking at my notes here, and they may have found their way to another document. So, we wanted to end the show. I think I remember the questions anyway. But we wanted to end the show with a few sports quiz questions for you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I did have 5 questions off the top of my head. I remember 4 of them. But let me know. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we sort of end the show with our quiz?
I just want to give you guys some love, man. I went on CBC telling you guys about how much I enjoyed the show and how much you guys are bringing joy during this tough time, man. I know it's hard to get into the sports because we're missing it, but just the casual approach, and just talking about the stuff that we love. We're a sports town. I'm a sports guy, and a lot of my friends are sports guys, and just to be able to hear you guys' voice and your takes, and it's a nice change of pace, and also the chemistry, it's great. So I just want to give you guys some love, and I meant it when I mentioned it on that interview that this is nice refreshing take, man.
Well, hey. I don't know if I speak for Pep too, but we obviously want to have you back on, and not only because you speak so eloquently and have a lot of knowledge and whatnot, but this episode sort of automatically went to your profession and some of the, your advice and guidance and takes on the COVID situation. And, it sort of took a bit of a turn. We didn't really get a chance to really get into sports and that aspect of it. So I think, again, from our standpoint, we'd love to have you back on where we can then sort of dive into, I'd love to know your take on this $500 million contract from Pat Mahomes. What's going to happen to the league with that? Stuff like that, or the Redskins name, the state of the NFL, different teams, again, I don't want to say a more enjoyable one because that's not what I mean, but just a lighter one, because we did talk about some pretty serious and life-altering situations that are happening right now in the world, and we appreciate that beyond. But we'd love to have you back in a lighter setting as well. So keep connected for that.
Yo, actually, you name it, I'm on it.
You know what? Just for I did want to, when you brought up the Washington Redskins, I did want to bring that up. Have you heard the list of potential rebranding names for the Redskins? And do you have one, your favorite?
I know I saw it on the score. There was 5. There was the Red Tails, or there was one with an airplane on it. I forgot the name.
That's the Red Tail, and it's it's an infantry unit that was an air. They were pilots that were all black.
Really?
Yeah. I can't remember what war. I'd have to do my research, but I thought that was really cool. And considering that, the times that we're living in, what a neat transition to a pretty cool name. And the logo looked pretty good too.
Well, that's my official answer then.
Red Tails?
Red Tails, baby.
Yes. I love it.
For the record, I found one article that I think has the name. So they had the Washington Warriors, the Washington Senators. Actually, that would be fitting considering the NHL Senators organization ran extremely similar to the Washington Senators one. Anyway, the Washington Braves, the Washington Red Hawks, the Washington Federals, the Washington Red Tails, and I think I saw a write-in for the Washington Rednecks, but I don't think that one was going to go over very well.
But the Pigskins was an option.
The Pigskins was an option as well, yeah. And that was actually brought up by one of our listeners and my brother. But he brought up the Pigskins, and we thought that was all right.
Well, but it works. It works for
one of our hugest fans. My mother.
My brother.
But you know what? I love the Pigskins. They're the Hogs from the '80s, the offensive line. It works.
I like the name.
Yeah.
But I'm going with Red Tails because of that backstory, man. I like the logo. I do like the logo.
Yeah, the logo was pretty sharp.
All right, Dr. K, question 1. Now I got 5 questions for you. I think I remember all 5 because I had them written down. And
I got one of them in front if you miss one.
Oh, perfect. Question number 1. Now, is there a passing grade? I'm going to say 60%. So if you get 3 out of 5.
Got this. I got this.
Okay. What piece of fruit is on the top of the Wimbledon men's trophy?
The tennis Wimbledon trophy. What piece of fruit is at the top? I actually knew this one.
Oh, my God. I could picture it, too. I want to say it's citrus.
Okay.
I'm going to go. But it's in England, so they can't just do something like normal. It's got to be like they would do something like a clementine or something. But just so I don't delay it, because I don't totally remember, I'm just going to say orange.
It's a pineapple.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No big deal.
Okay,
No big deal. That was just a warm up. Okay.
Although it counts.
Number 2.
I'm going to get that 60%. Don't worry.
Number 2. Who holds? Well, actually, we know who holds the all-time assist record for hockey. It's Wayne Gretzky. Mm-hmm. But who is number 2? And this one surprised me actually. But who is number 2 on that list?
Adam Oates.
That great answer.
Guess.
Great answer. It's actually Ron Francis, and that that threw me off. Because Ronnie played for a long time. I forgot how, and he played for the Whalers. He played for the Penguins. He went back to Carolina and took them. Actually, won a cup, I think. There, yeah. Ron Francis and Mark Messier is number 3. So can you imagine the two Oilers out of the top 3 were from that era that you saw? That's incredible.
That also helps our justification for the fact that it was just easy to score back then.
Yeah.
it was easier to score.
What a juggernaut. Okay, question number 3. Kobe Bryant was traded on draft day. He wasn't drafted by the Lakers. So who was he drafted by, and who was he traded for?
Oh, man, I just saw this on – I feel like I saw it on TSN, on whatever sports – oh, my God.
Pierre does not give any layups, just FYI. When he's like, I got a few questions for you,
clearly
does not give any layups.
I'm just – because I'm not 100% sure. I'm just going to go with McClure and Sacramento. But I don't know.
Well, close. He was drafted by the Charlotte Hornets, and he was traded for Vlade Divac.
What? I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the Lakers knew they were bringing in. The Lakers knew they were bringing in Shaq from Orlando, so they didn't have a need for Vlade anymore. So, if in hindsight, I'm sure Charlotte has a history of just poor decisions. And actually, as good a player as Michael Jordan was, he's equally as awful a GM and a player manager. He's made some god awful decisions out there in Charlotte, North Carolina. So, yeah. Okay, so where are we at? 3?
For the record, 60% was not fair whatsoever. If you got 1 out of 5, I would have given you props. So you're still in the game. You're still in the game.
I'm gonna accept the loss here, but that just means next time I come on, I'm going to be even
Bring
more.
the heat. Yeah, bring the heat.
Studying tomorrow.
Who is the oldest football player to ever play?
Gary Anderson? Is it Gary Anderson? Mort Anderson?
One of the kickers?
Kicker, left foot. I'm going to say Mort Anderson.
You know what?
Wait.
Currently, all the oldest players in the NFL are kickers.
Like right now, it's Adam Vinatieri, but like you're saying ever, right?
All time, yeah. Active players, you're right. It's Adam Vinatieri, assuming he comes back. Otherwise, I think it's Phil Dawson for the Cardinals, another kicker.
Oh,
But,
really? Okay, I didn't know
but
that.
all time.
All time?
I'll give you a clue because it's a toughie. It would have been in between the 1950s. Played for the Chicago Bears. Actually, played for a lot of teams, but you'd know him from the Bears.
The Bears. Then I for sure don't know this one because it's not. I mean, that era. The only one that comes to mind is Ditka, and he wasn't that old when I think even he's past the 50s. So I legit don't know.
It's George Blanda. He was a quarterback and a kicker, and he played for the Bears and the Raiders and a few other teams. So Houston Oilers. I think he ended his career with the Raiders. But
I want to know the person that knows the answer to that question. I want to know that person.
That's pretty
They're
great.
my hero.
We'll introduce you to Matt Potvin because I feel like he would have known because he's a big Bears fan, historian.
Yeah.
He probably would have known that, and he would have said like, well, he was a quarterback and a kicker, but he mostly did kicking at the end or something. I had no idea who that was either.
Well, let me throw in a bonus question here. Which teams have the most Super Bowls in the NFL?
So we got Pats at 6.
Yeah.
We got the Steelers at 6.
Yeah. Give it the horn, Brock.
I'm on the wrong one. I got you.
No.
So is it right? You forgot one question too, Pep.
How much further is there? Do I have to go further?
That's it. There's two teams with
6.
With 6 Super Bowls. All right.
The Steelers and Brady both with 6. Perfect.
Yeah. Brock, do you have any questions for any quiz questions?
The last one that you missed was who holds the record for the all-time home runs in baseball?
Oh, I forgot that one. Yes.
Well, was Barry just a season or was he the all-time?
No.
Well, Barry for sure had the season at 70, whatever, 70-something. And then all-time, I think it was Barry too. And if it wasn't Barry... Yeah.
Let's do it before you talk yourself out of it.
Yeah, because he's the asterisk.
Yeah, Hank Aaron and Babe Ruth. Hank Aaron, Babe Ruth, and Alex Gonzalez are next on the
Alex
list.
Gonzalez. I wouldn't have. Wow.
You know, this whole steroid era, I get it, but I mean, people forget in his prime, Alex Gonzalez was the best player in baseball for a few years.
But my question, I mean, I know this is not what we've been talking about, but like, was there any clean players in that era, in your opinion?
I mean, if Rafael Palmeiro was taking steroids, then it's hard to say if there was or wasn't, because he looked like your average, beer league guy playing first base, but he was implemented in that whole case. So
nothing average about that mustache. There's nothing average about that
Rafael Palmeiro.
Oh.
That's a Hall of Fame mustache.
Yeah, but that was greasy.
Oh yeah. Oh,
that's like Uncle Lewis. Like it's not right.
We got to have an all greasy baseball team, top 10. Who are the greasiest looking
Randy
mustaches?
Johnson. Randy Johnson's got to be in there.
Kruk, John Kruk.
Yeah, for
John
sure.
John Kruk is in there for sure.
Actually, most of the Phillies from the 92-93 team would probably be there. Lenny Dykstra. There's a few.
Dykstra, yeah. That's a good one. Even Kurt Schilling, maybe because I know his personality, he was a bit dodgy looking too.
Who was the Jays third baseman? Historic third baseman. He tagged Deion Sanders
Gruber.
on the.
Kelly Gruber.
Gruber. Yeah, he was greasy looking.
Oh, really? I thought he had nice flow.
Oh, it was flow, but it was...
That flow was sinister. I like this flow. And he's a gamer, too. He was
He was a gamer.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, man.
Yeah.
You want to wrap it up, Pep?
Well, listen, it's been a pleasure. It's been informative. Amazing. I know, like Brock said, we kind of went on the we took a turn for the science, and we want to get you back and actually talk sports next time because you obviously know your stuff. And we do want to know. I do want to know your opinion on Patrick Mahomes. And there's going to be, as sports approaches restart, I think it's going to be really interesting to get your point of view on how it looks. But let's have you back on. Can we sort of agree that you'll come back on our show and talk about the topic of the day?
100%. 100%.
Yes.
By the way, I don't know that term by that Mahomes contract, but I saw him play live. The kid is amazing. Yeah. He truly is I actually think he's a generational talent. I don't know. Was it 10 years?
10 years, which is always tricky. I think that no one's disputing the money.
It's 10 on top of the fact that it's a 10 extension. So he's got 12 left on his contract.
At $500 million.
Yeah, so if you think he was good on the field when you saw him, wait till he's actually all 5 offensive linemen, the quarterback, and his scoring receiver and running back on the field at the same time. That's going to be very impressive.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing with that contract. But that's something that we want to talk to you about, and we'll see how this. We'll see if any other players get this kind of money in the next couple of weeks, because it could set a precedent. The guy from the Lamar Jackson might be up for some big cash if that's the case. So we'll see what happens.
And if they don't get fans back, there is not going to be enough money to pay these salaries anyway. But that's a discussion for another time. We're going out to your song. You chose this, called "Run the Jewels." But hey, man, we appreciate you.
It's called Goonies versus E.T.
Is that what it's called? What's "Run the Jewels"?
Run the Jewels.
Oh, that's by Run the Jewels.
Middle-aged rappers, okay? And they throw down hard.
It's actually,
love it.
I can't wait to pump this in the truck.
If I make another wish, I'll wish for a wish for you. For you. Hey. E-Gad, you heard of these lads, the myth, how we made a grip, never rode dick. Truly the Cadillac, I had to contract L's on a quick.
Dick 'em up, slick, talking no tricks.
It's the funniest shit. Finally the money up and print on the kid, and the planet hit skids. Living in a valley of flames, like I win. Skyline ablaze, and a bomb rock big. You don't want to acknowledge I'm raw, give a shit, never nine. You can talk to me fun when I'm gone. Bad news bearing along with big claws, trying to hold a whole lives in his paws and applaud. Swear to goddamn, the whole city I make a romance hard. We got scars for hearts, shit for eyes, baby, living in a one chance lot, so I stick to the art. Oh my god, ultra mad, cash it bad, running through dead zone, hope it don't crash. Tell us all, motherfucker, bring it up fast. Be along, I'm a home, but I can and then dash. Fuck y'all got another planet on stash. Far from the fact that the flames